Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next installment of our Customer Enablement Web Series. My name is Andrea Hall. I am a Marketing Operations Coordinator here at Saratech, and I will be your host today. With me is Dan Nadeau. He is one of our awesome applications engineers, and he'll be talking to you a little bit about FEMAP and specifically using the meshing toolbox. So first, I wanted to tell you a little bit about our Saratech enablement series. We are here every Thursday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, and we usually run about 30 minutes, sometimes 45 minutes, sometimes a little bit less. And our sessions are always led by subject matter experts, sometimes developers, sometimes just power users. Some of our customers are power users, and we touch on many, many different topics, FEMAP, Solid Edge, NX, Team Center, and if you ever have any suggestions for things that you would specifically like to see, please let us know. We try to get as specific as we can, but within 30-minute time frame, it's kind of tough sometimes. But again, if there's something that you don't see during the training today that you would like to see in the future, please let us know, and we'll be definitely happy to give you a call and go into a little bit more depth if we can. So the goal of these Customer Enablement Series webinars are to really help you get the most out of your Siemens PLM software. Sometimes there are just so many things that can be done within the software that people don't even realize all these awesome little tips and tricks that can be done. So that's why we really have these trainings. And also just to share knowledge between each other. This is an open forum, so if you have anything that you'd like to add, any questions that you have, please just let us know during the webinar, and I'll be bringing that up to, I'll be bringing that up right away to Dan, and he'll try and answer your questions right then and there on the spot. We don't wait until the end, and really just to build a community. So, like I said, if you have anything that you'd like to add or have any questions, please feel free to just put that right over in the little chat box over to your right, and I will speak up when it's appropriate and see if Dan can answer any of your questions. And that is really the best place to just make sure that you get your input. And then right after the training today, there will be a little survey. We would really appreciate it if you would just stick around for an extra 15 seconds to fill out the survey and let us know how we did today. Let us know if you have any suggestions for future training, and if there's anything we can do to get in contact with you afterwards for anything else that you might need. And with that, I would like to pass it along to Dan, and let's get this thing started. Dan?
Thank you for the introduction. Hello and welcome. As Andrea mentioned, my name is Dan Nadeau. I'm an application engineer. My primary focus is FEMAP. I do use NX and Astran. I do specialize also in NX CAE and NX CAD. So today I'm going to spend some time talking about FEMAP, and briefly here's the agenda that we're going to go through. So I'm going to discuss the meshing toolbox. I'm just going to talk about what it can do, some of the buttons, things like that. Then I'm going to go ahead and open up FEMAP, give you a demonstration. So what can it actually do? So to me, it's nice to hear what it can do, but it really brings it home when I actually can see what it's doing. So before I get there, I just want to bring this topic up. So there is a FEMAP users community. If you just use a Google search and you just do FEMAP users community, or inside FEMAP help FEMAP users community, this is just an online forum where many FEMAP users go. Even the FEMAP development team goes there and answers questions. So if you guys have questions or you want to discuss, it's just a great open forum for us, the users, to discuss. So a lot of good information there. If any events coming up related to FEMAP are also located on that website as well. Okay, on to our topic of discussion for today. So I'm going to talk about the meshing toolbox. So what is it? It's just this tool that is inside FEMAP that is a collection of buttons and tools to go ahead and create and repair geometry and go ahead and define meshes. So I use this a lot of times when I'm meshing structures and I'm changing structures around. Maybe I need to change a mesh size and I want to make sure that my mesh is nice and clean. So there are a bunch of different, I'll just say, tools inside there, such as the locator, if we need to suppress or remove features, if we need to edit geometry, we need to combine composite curves or boundary surfaces. We can interactively change the mesh, we can change mesh sizing, and we can check element quality, and we can even adjust that element quality on the fly. So now I'm just going to go through the buttons. So the meshing toolbox is usually tabbed with the model info and a lot of times post-processing. If it doesn't exist here, it's under Tools, Meshing Toolbox. So from here, this is where it would be located. I usually keep it tabbed here, but maybe you want to move it out and it's open. You know, FEMAP is allows you to move it wherever you want. We'll keep it tabbed in our little demo here today, but let's go over the buttons at the top of the meshing toolbox. So the first one is a toggle tool. So if you accidentally click on one of these X's and you lose it and you can't find it, you'll be able to toggle it on and off under this first one. The second one is an entity locator. So this is an additional tool where you can find entities in the model such as surfaces, curves, and elements. The next one is the mesh quality contour. So if you want to quickly view a contour plot of the mesh quality, we can select this icon. The next one over is a remesh options. So when we make changes using the meshing toolbox, and this is one of the positive things, is it automatically updates the mesh. So you can have it not automatically update, or whenever you make a change, you can have it update on the fly. That's how it is by default. But if maybe you're working with some large structure and it's taking a long time to update, you can make a bunch of changes and then have it update on its own. So this is one of the powerful things about using the meshing toolbox is the mesh is automatically updating as you use these features. The next button over is number 5 is the select. I call this the go button. So whatever you want to do inside the meshing toolbox, you need to have the go button active. So if you want to change a mesh size or mesh a surface, you need to make sure that your go button is active. And then the next button over is the dialog. So this is the go button with the dialog select. So if you need to change, some of those methods, or you're using the dialog select in FEMAP to say, on surface, on curve, maybe you want to pick based on a property or a group, that might be an easier way to use the selection. So the first is the entity locator. So if you hit on this down arrow, you'll be able to go to this entity locator. So this is an additional tool. A decent amount of people don't know that this exists. There is some power here. You'll be able to find information about curves, surfaces, and elements. And then you have some options of where you want to locate it. So it's a good way to find certain entities in the model or visualize what's going on. The next command down is feature suppression. So basically we're taking our structure and we're suppressing some sort of entity. So I'll just say fake deleting it. So we're not modifying the geometry, but we're hiding it from the mesher. So if we would go ahead and mesh this structure as we see now, those gray arrows are suppressed at this moment, so the mesher would ignore them. So one thing that's really important to remember with feature suppression is the original geometry is not modified. Where when we step up into feature removal, the original geometry is modified. So if you are removing features, such as, surfaces, a lot of times you're going to be removing loops, which would be a circle, blends, things to go ahead and defeature a model and make it finite element friendly. So one important thing at this level is to remember that your original geometry is modified. So if you go ahead and you export this out, it will be the new modified geometry. So a lot of these commands are very similar to just doing delete commands. The next one down is feature editing. So it allows you to edit geometry while we're automatically updating the mesh. So we can, we can right now change sizes of holes, rotate surfaces, things like that. But if you do it within this meshing toolbox, it's going to make those changes interactively while updating the mesh. The next one down is geometry editing, and these commands are under geometry, curve, curve from surface. So if you do those commands as the pull down, these are the same commands except it's all interactively located in one spot. If you do some of these commands like point to edge to edge, point to point type commands, it's much easier to use in the meshing toolbox. It's just going to save you a couple clicks because you just don't have to specify the surface every time. It automatically understands what surface that you want to use. So there's a lot of great commands in this geometry editing, and I'll show you some serious time savers coming up. Next is combine composite curves. So this is easier shown than to talk about, but basically if you have a location of a curve and it's broken up into individual entities, when you go ahead and mesh it, the mesh is going to try to put a hard point where you have these curve breaks. So if you combine these curves together that there is no hard break there, the mesher is going to ignore that and it's going to give you a nice clean mesh. And the other one is boundary surfaces. So this is very similar to our curves, but this deals with surfaces. So this image shows a good representation. So if you see in the beginning of the image, we have a couple different surfaces define different locations. So the mesher has to mesh each individual surface together, as its own entity. But if you would use this combined boundary surface, as you see, it turns this light greenish color, blue color. It's combining these surfaces together so that the mesher is meshing this all as one smooth surface. So you're going to get a nice quality mesh. You're not going to drive up element count in some of these regions where they're small. So you could actually induce some sort of these tiny sliver surfaces and not good quality mesh, where if you combine it with another surface, this is going to help you out. The next one is mesh sizing. So the basic for mesh sizing is just doing a mesh control size along a curve. So it allows us to dynamically see mesh size. The next one is mesh surface. So this is a way to just mesh a surface. So this would just be mesh geometry surface if you're doing that way. So one important thing, this is for surface or shell meshes only. Inside here we have many options of how we want it to be meshed. We have different mesh approaches and things like that. We'll talk about that shortly. Mesh locate. So this is a way to dynamically move a node. So you can take a node and drag it along, drag it to wherever you want. You can specify it by a vector and things like that. So this is a way to dynamically move nodes. And the last one in the list is mesh quality. So this just gives us a fringe plot of our mesh quality. So one nice thing is you can turn on this mesh quality plot and make changes, and you'll be able to see the mesh quality updates. So inside here we can do FEMAP checks, Nastran checks of different types of element quality, so aspect ratio, warping, taper, things like that. Okay, so let me go ahead and hop over to FEMAP and show some of these things. I think it's better to see a lot of these things. I just want to make sure I at least had all the content, so if you wanted to go back, you could review what was mentioned. So right now I have the meshing toolboxes tabbed over here on the left. I'm going to try to make it bigger so that we can see what's going on. And I have a simple part. It's a lawnmower blade in this case. But the first thing that I want to do here is use this entity locator. So if we just turn on, you just say toggle entity locator, you can turn it on and off. As if you can notice, it becomes an entity above the rest of the meshing toolbox. So inside here I can look for curves. So maybe I want to see where are the free curves in my model, things like that, multi-surface edges, things like that. This is a solid body, so this isn't best to show curves. So we'll go to surfaces, and in this case I want to find small surfaces. Do I have any? And I don't have any. Slivers. And it's saying I have 8 surfaces. So this is a great way to interrogate the model, and if I wanted to zoom in to this location, I'll be able to see that there is this tiny sliver surface. So this actually happened due to some CAD. It's so small, and this would be a region where we'd want to do a combine surfaces together so that the mesher noticed this little surface was connected to the other. So imagine the mesher would have to throw tiny elements in this location, but if we combined it with the surface next to it, we would have a nice clean mesh because it would notice this as one surface. So inside this entity locator, there are some locate options. So if you want to, only find things in certain groups or ignore certain things or find different ways to locate it, you can do that. And there's different ways to show it. If you want to click through, it'll rotate. So if you click on the entity locator, there is a next, so it'll toggle me to the next location, and I can continue to press this next, and it's just bringing me to the other sliver surfaces in the model. One thing that I like to do in this case is after I find something, I'll go here and I'll create a group. So then you can give your group a descriptive name here, and now those entities have moved themselves into a group. So now if you needed to remove them or you wanted to do another command here, like combine these surfaces together, this would be a great opportunity to do that. We'll step back here and let me just hop over to another model real quick. And I'll hop back into this entity locator. So real quick here, we can go ahead and change the surfaces, this to a curves, and you can toggle to see free edges of the model. So now we're looking at free edges of this model. So if you use FEMAP a decent amount and you use the command non-manifold add, which is one thing that I'll talk about a little bit more, is that we would combine these edges together so that these would not be technical free edges. Now I'm looking at physical free edges in the geometry, not the FEA free edges. So this is a good check that we'll discuss a little bit later when I want to do non-manifold add, that I want to make sure that this edge wouldn't be a free edge in that case. And we can also check things like element quality if we wanted to. So that is the entity locator. So let me hop up into the rest of the things inside the meshing toolbox. So the first entity is feature suppression. So this is, I just have this simple part. I'm going to show this part a decent amount of times. What I want to do here is suppress these holes. Maybe I want to see what happens without these holes in this instance. So I'm just going to hit my go button, and I'm going to select an entity, and you'll be able to see that the hole was not removed, but it has been removed from this analysis. So it might be hard to capture this online, but there's dotted lines all the way around it to show that it has been suppressed. Now, one nice thing about suppression is if I go back and I click on this entity, that hole is going to go back. So I'm not permanently changing the geometry. At this instance, I am just removing it from the analysis. So that's the go button to select an entity. Maybe I want to select all the holes on this face at once. Using this dialog select, it'll bring up our FEMAP selector. So right now it already says entity select, select curves. So now I'm already at the instance to go ahead and select these curves. I guess I'll grab all of them in this case. And now you can see those all have been suppressed from the model. And just like I did that, I can just say, hey, let's just restore all these suppressed features, and now those have been come back. Now, one of the, I'll just say, not benefits of the feature suppression is that if you did do a command such as a non-manifold add, you are not able to suppress these features. So that is one of the downsides with feature suppression. All right. So let me step down into feature removal, and let's move on to our next model. Somebody that way. There we go. And as you can see, I'm going to use this same simple electrical box that I'm going to use for a decent amount of these things. So a lot of times you're going to be getting some sort of geometry from the start that you need to make some adjustments. So for this case, a lot of times you're going to mid-surface this, but maybe you want to model it some other way. And you need to remove all these blends in this model. So before, you would have to go in here to surfaces, and using the dialog select, you can do a little trick. I'm going to select this little corner fillet, and I can say pick add connected fillets, and it's going to grab all those connected fillets, and I can hit OK, and I can remove that little section. I'd have to repeat that throughout the model. Now, in our case, there's a simple way to go ahead and remove blends all at once. Now, there is an option to limit size, so let's grab all blends that are smaller than, in this case, I'll just put 5. I believe this part's in millimeters. So if I select the whole model, all of those blends have been removed very easily. So this limit size is very useful for when you're doing blends and loops as well. So I'll switch this over to loops, and a loop is a closed circle. So maybe I just want to remove all these small holes, and maybe I'm not too sure a size. So I'll just quickly measure a size. So it's a little bit smaller than 5. So if I go in here and I just say, let me remove loops smaller than, and we'll just say anything smaller than 5, and I'm just going to go ahead and do my box select, which is holding down Shift. I'm just going to select the whole model. You'll see that all those small holes have been removed and it kept all those other size ones. So these inside holes and the outside holes have remained based on that criteria that I specified. So feature removal, now if I go ahead and export this model out, this model no longer has those features in it. So these are permanent changes to the model. And the same thing can be said for surfaces. In this case, if I go ahead and try to remove this surface, it's not going to let me. There is a toggle over here for aggressive removal. The only time that you'll need to select this is if you're trying to do something that is going to, I guess, permanently destroy the underlying geometry. So if I select on this face now, it's going to give me an error, but it removed that face because now it's a hollow piece of it. It doesn't make sense to do some of these commands that I'm doing, but just showing you that this is what that aggressive removal does. So if anything is troubling or doesn't work as you would think, maybe you want to toggle on this aggressive removal. Okay. The next one down is, feature editing. So in this case, maybe I have this little box and I have these rounds inside, and instead of removing them, I want to go ahead and take a surface, and I'm just going to edit a value. So I'm going to click it without auto extend. So I want to auto extend this 1/8 of an inch. So now when I click on it, it changes that to, I edited the size of the round, to 1/8 of an inch. And it only changed this little piece. So I'm just going to do an undo. And now I want to go ahead and say auto extend. And now when I select on the same entity, it grabbed all the ones that were connected to it and it changed those also to that same value. Now you can also do some other things in this translate surface. I'll just do this. I don't know how much this makes sense real quick, but I'm going to move it in my X direction. I just specified the vector I want to move it. The distance I want to move it, I'll just put a 0.5. And now when I select on the entity, you'll see that that entity has moved over. So that value looks like it's a little too large. So if I continue to select on the entities, I'm going to move these entities over whatever I select. Now, one of the neat things is if this was meshed, and since I'm using the meshing toolbox, it'll automatically update and make these changes so that I will not have to remesh it. The mesh will follow me making these changes. Some of these changes don't make any sense that I'm doing. The next one down is geometry editing. So this is a lot of times where you'll be spending, where I spend most of my time. So here I have a electrical box that we showed earlier. All I did was mid-surface it. So one thing that I like to do here is do a geometry mid-surface assign mesh attributes. I'm not too sure where this came from. I'm going to have to redo this. Let's check what happens. Get some material. So this command automatically creates properties for me based on the mid-surface creation. So this model didn't have any properties, but using that mid-surface creation of creating these properties for me under the geometry mid-surface assign mesh attributes, it's automatically creating these properties and it's relating them to the surfaces. So now when I use my little highlighter and show, these surfaces that I'm highlighting are related to this property already, so that when I use the meshing toolbox and I mesh it, I'm already using a mesh attribute, so it already knows what size it wants. I'm sorry, not size, what property it wants to become. So let's go here under geometry editing, and let's just show some simple things. Let me go ahead and remove this large hole. So I'll go feature removal, loop, my go button, select. And now let me go in here and let's put some pads. I'll put some pad around these top two. And I also have an option down here. I can change how I want it to be at one radius, or if I want it to be larger, I can change these. This time I'm going to say add a washer to these ones. So it's just an extra little layer on here. And then I'm going to use some of these commands point to point. So basically I'm breaking the surface up from wherever I'm selecting a point to a point. Now the reason why you would do this is I'm just creating nice regions that can be meshed. So if you think about the regions that I created, they're nice square and I'll have nice clean regions. Maybe I want to continue this up through the structure. I can do this point to edge commands. and you'll see I can continue to do this throughout the structure. Now, sometimes, and this is a little tip, is when I'm trying to select on this curve, there's multiple curves at this location because I didn't do a non-manifold add. If you hold down the alternate key, it changes your pick to a pick query on the fly. So I can go ahead and change that curve right there on the fly. So it just is a quick way for, instead of me right-clicking the background and saying pick query, wherever it's at, I can just hold down the alternate key and make that selection. So what we're doing here is we're just creating nice map meshable regions. So what I'm going to do before we haven't talked about this at this point is hop down here into mesh surface, and right here attributes. I want to make sure that I'm using the correct property. At this point it says using mesh attributes, but if I hit the down arrow I can select what property I want on the fly. But since mine are already associative, I don't need to change it. It already knows. But if you did not do that step, this is where you would go ahead and specify it. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw a map mesh, and whatever I select, it will throw a mesh on there. So if I just hold down my box pick, you'll see that it is meshing all the entities that I select. And you can see I get a nice clean mesh, very easy. But maybe I need to do some more sizing around these holes. Maybe I want a little more mesh refinement. That's where the command mesh sizing comes in. So mesh surface is very straightforward. You specify what type of mesh you want, free or mapped. If you want tris or quads, make sure you're selecting the correct property. And then there are some advanced options. So if you want to change smoothing, things like that. Now, one of the new features in the newest release, if you do a free mesh, there's a button that says for max quads. That's a new feature as well. So we specify our mesh size. Our mesh surface. And now we can go ahead and interactively size things. So what we're doing right now is I am sizing a curve to increase by a number of elements on one. So if I select on this curve, you'll notice that one element is being added. So I can very nicely make a nice clean mesh. So anytime I click, I'm increasing any curve by one. I can also decrease it by a value, and I can also set it to a value. So let me set it to 10 elements. So I want 10 elements through this thickness. So whenever I click here, I'm going to now have 10 elements in that region. So we can continue to make some of these changes as I go along. So I could even do, I don't know why you do this, but I can continue to step up here and say I want 10 along this length, 10 along this length, and now it'll follow up through my structure. So I can get really nice mesh refinement. And one of the advantages of creating these meshable regions is I got nice clean mesh. One other common instance this happens if you don't do a non-manifold add is you're going to have these edges that don't line up. In my case it does, so I'm going to go to my mesh surface and I'm going to change the mesh size over here just to clearly show a difference. Make sure I'm on the big front. Okay. So now this is a common issue. So one face does not match the other face. So one thing that we can do real quick here is hop back in our mesh sizing, and I can size both these curves to be the same. Or I can just say match curves, which is a different way of doing the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and hit my ... and select the curve I want to match. So I want to match the nice refined curve. So I selected the curve I want to match. Now I just need to hit the go button again. One thing to point out now that I'm doing this is when your go button is active, your cursor now has a little tool next to it so that you know that you are using that button. So now I want to select the other curve. It's a little bit difficult, so just like I did before, I can hold down the alternate key and make the selection, and I can grab the curve that I'm looking for. And now I can hit that button, and now you see that the meshes now line up in that location very easily. So using the meshing toolbox, it makes that step very easy and not hard to do. So one important thing to do if you are doing these commands is do a tools check coincident nodes and then select those entities, and you are going I'm just going to hit preview in my case, but you are going to have to merge those so that they would be merged in this instance. So let's continue to talk about a couple more features in here. So under geometry editing, down here at the bottom there's extend. So a lot of times you're going to have a mid-surface like this, and there's going to be a gap. Using a simple command for extend, you can extend, and here's your shape. If you want it to go in linear, maybe it's following some sort of curve. You need to follow the curvature. You can do that. Maybe it's being some sort of reflective. But in my case, I'm going to go linear, extend to, in my case, I'm going to say a surface. You can specify a distance. But anytime you see this dot, 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 that means where do you want to go? So I'm going to select on this face, or what do you want to select? So now that is selected. So now whatever I hit with the go button, it is going to go to that distance. So now I can quickly and easily, clean up this mesh. Clean up the surface so that things line up. Maybe they don't line up to this face, so I need to slide that over. It's going to clear the surface I have. And now I'm going to select a new surface. And now whatever I select will go to that surface. So now I can clean this up and do some procedures such as a geometry surface non-manifold add. And I can combine these surfaces together so that they share a common free edge. It looks like I would want to extend one of these surfaces inside, but then I would have the free edges where I'd want my model, and I'd create a nice mesh, and I wouldn't have to worry about not having coincident nodes and locations. Some of the other commands in the geometry editing is project move point. This is one of the newer ones. So in this case, I want to move to a point. So what you would do is specify a point and then another point that you would like to go there. So this is an easy way to go ahead and clean up geometry like this. So if you create a mid-surface and it's not nice, this is a good way. So you don't need to move to a point. You can move to a surface. So this time I'm going to specify a surface, and then I'm going to click a point, and that point is going to go there. So all I'm doing is selecting a surface, then a point. So I think I'm easily showing you how simple using this meshing toolbox is to clean this up. Now, one important thing, I'll just throw this on real fast, is if these entities were meshed and I did the same command under geometry editing, and I want to move, this time I'll move to a point, and I'll go backwards. You'll see that the mesh is changing as I'm making it, so I'm not losing these features. And then now they have added a project curve. So now you can imprint. So I want to imprint onto this surface, and now I'm going to use the dialog select this time. And I'm going to select the curves that I want to imprint. So now I have brought these curves up to the top face. So this is just the same command as doing geometry, curve from surface, project, but I can do it dynamically using the meshing toolbox. Show that. All right, real quick, let me go over a couple more things. Look like got about maybe 10 more minutes under combine composite curves. So here's this simple example. We teach this in our class. If I would mesh this surface, and you'll see how easy it is for me to just hop over here in the meshing toolbox and mesh, surfaces. But let's just concentrate on this little section here. So this has a tiny point that lines up over here, and you'll see that the node has to go there. Now, using something like my combine composite curves, and I want to add this point to the other point, you see that that mesh cleans up. So now if I hop back and I look at it fully and we turn off the elements, you'll see that this is now one clean curve. Where on this side, it's not one clean curve. So if I continue to do this combine composite curves add by points, and I select these points, and that's all that, now this is one smooth mesh, and now the node doesn't have to be a hard location. So now we got a nice, much more clean mesh in this location. All right. So let me go ahead and open up one more thing and we'll talk about this. All right. So real quickly, let me just go ahead and mesh the surfaces. I'm going to go ahead and just give a box select to this region. And you'll see I did get an error at the bottom, so I told it to give me a matte mesh, and some regions appear not to be matte meshable. So what I did before was I created pads and washers ahead of time, but if you wanted to do that on the fly while it's already meshed, you can do these same commands while it is already meshed. So you can automatically update. You know, I can even go in here, feature removal, go ahead and remove this large center circle. And if I wanted to continue to refine this by doing those point to edge and edge point-to-point commands, I could go ahead and do that. But let's go ahead and talk about the last two buttons here in the meshing toolbox, this mesh locate. So what I want to do while I have mesh locate on is I want to hop down here to my surface mesh quality. And this is being controlled by the toggle button up at the top. So now if I turn on this mesh quality, it gives me a fringe plot of my structure. So maybe let's just concentrate on this one region right here. So maybe, I don't know, this is around some area of interest and I need to make a change. If we hop into this mesh locate, there is an option right here, attach to surface, attach to solid, or a standalone mesh. So this feature you do not need to have geometry. In my case, I do have geometry. So I'm just going to grab the surface, highlight, make sure I grab the right one. And now when I hit the go button, I can dynamically drag that element. So I can make this better or worse. So there I alleviated the red. The red doesn't mean bad in this case, but I can continue to make the changes. If I have one over here, I can drag these. And as you can see, I'm cleaning up these elements very easily just by dragging nodes. So if I needed to make some sort of criteria, I could do these changes. Then over here I can save or discard these changes. So maybe those were some nice things that we could do. But one of the other ways that we could have done is just created some of those point-to-edge commands and create pads and washers and create nice matte meshable regions. So I know I went through a lot of different features in the meshing toolbox. It's very powerful. I just recommend everybody get in there and try, press the buttons and see what happens. You know, reach out to us if you have questions. I'm sure, you know, you will have some questions, and you just need to understand what you're doing and spend some time, you know, going through it. A lot of power here. Okay, so let me give a brief summary of what I went over. So, you know, I showed you guys, you know, how to use some of the features in the meshing toolbox. I tried to cover everything. We only had about 30 minutes. I see I went a little bit long. You know, try to get in there and use it. There's a lot of good things, especially dynamically sizing, creating meshes on the fly, using some of that feature removal. Because sometimes you just go to delete, the delete pull down, and something's not being deleted. A lot of times, if you use the meshing toolbox, those entities will be deleted. So some of these reasons why it's very easy to use. It's not difficult. It's fast and interactive. You can make these changes on the fly without having to change you know, anything. It's just hit the go button, see what happens. So that's all I have to present today. I'll kick it back over to Andrea to finish this up here.
Awesome, great job. You squeezed a lot into 30 minutes. Good job. We didn't get any questions or comments during this webinar today, but again, if you have any questions, you can always fill it out in the survey right after we end this session, or you are welcome to email us at any time. Our next session on the 16th will be, again, like I said, at 11 a.m. Pacific time, and we'll be talking about Team Center. It'll be Jason West, one of our applications engineers. I'm sure quite a bit of you have spoken with him at some point, and he'll just be talking about how Team Center can be integrated with various CAD data, and we don't know the exact details of that yet, but we will be sending out an email and an invite for that. And again, thank you everyone for attending. We will have this webinar posted on our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe so that you can get all of the updates of all of our different training and webinars that we post on there. And I'll also be sending it out to everyone through email. And you are welcome to watch it again on your own time or pass it along to colleagues. We would always appreciate that. And again, thank you, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day.